Welcome into the CHGO White Sox podcast, coming to you live from Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
You can follow him at Ecknerwall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. You can follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. We're being produced today by Sarah.
Hello.
Hello. And you could read Vinny Duber's latest article up at ALLCITY.com. He has some exclusive quotes from the White Sox skipper up there, so you can go check that out. Vinny is on vacation and will be joining us next week. We will not be doing post-game shows this week. All of our shows will be either at 3 p.m. Tomorrow will be at 3:45 p.m. So we're going to be having guests in each and every day. And today we are very excited to have Jordan Shusterman, one half of Céspedes Family Barbecue, over at Yahoo Sports on. Jake and Jordan post episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering the latest in Major League Baseball. Jordan grew up a Seattle fan, but first, before we get into some Seattle stuff, I want to ask you, because we do have a little podcast beef, and it's very minor, but you guys refer to a 4-game sweep, something the White Sox are very used to, as mopping. I think when we started in 2022 or whatever, we were just bored one day, and we referred to it as a vacuuming. So why are you in the mop corner rather than the vacuum corner?
Oh man, that's really interesting. So the origins of that are hilariously somewhat indirectly White Sox related, which was that we did a bike trip a few years ago because Jake had made a grand claim that the White Sox would never hire Tony La Russa. It would never happen. He was so sure of it. And he's like, yeah, if they hire Tony La Russa, I'll bike to Chicago. And so then, as you guys might recall, they did hire Tony La Russa. And so then after that, Jake was like, you know what? I do like biking, and let's make a thing out of it. So I'm going to bike to Chicago. So we did a whole trip. And the reason I bring that up is that on one of those days where essentially Jake was biking every day, hours and hours and hours, and I was just driving a car like a normal person from city to city. And after one of those days, in the middle of that trip, we were just in a hotel somewhere, just kind of delirious from the heat, more so Jake than me. And I just remember pulling up whatever and seeing someone had posted, or, you know, the casual thing, someone was there for a sweep, and I saw that people were bringing brooms. People were bringing brooms to stands. I was like, come on, we could do better than this. And that's why I was like, we should bring mops. If it's 4 games, it should be mops. And I think it was that bringing a mop to a game feels more plausible than a vacuum. I could be wrong, but in terms of like waving it in the air, you know, like, and kind of taunting your opponent feels a little bit better. But again, we've had a lot of discourse about other terminology. I've enjoyed tracking this just because it is kind of a schedule quirk that is kind of up my alley anyway. And now you guys have become all too familiar with it for all their own reasons.
And it's been fun.
And keeping it White Sox related, one of our Discord members, Alejandro, wants to know, he read an article that you did earlier about stolen bases, wants to know if you think that defensive steals should be more of a pitcher stat than the current format where it's a catcher stat.
Yeah, this is a really, so I did the story a couple weeks ago, basically just talking to a bunch of the best base stealers about, you know, what is it? How does one steal a base in the big leagues? And basically everyone, including Trey Turner, who would know better than anybody, he's like, yeah, 98% of the bases are stolen on the pitcher. And I think that even though if you follow baseball closely, I think you probably understand that. I think it runs counter to the vision in our head, which is that it's catcher versus base runner. Yeah. And I think that is a really, especially now with the new rules and how hard it is for teams to consistently contain base runners. It really is about the pitcher, because it really doesn't matter who's back there. Because oftentimes, I think my favorite quote from that was talking to a coach who said, oftentimes the hay is already in the barn by the time the catcher is trying to accomplish anything in terms of stopping a potential base runner.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Martin Maldonado not only struggle at the plate, but also behind the plate as well. And it's also just raised questions of if it's a pitcher thing, because sometimes the White Sox pitchers just aren't looking at the runners on base. Before we get into the 4-game set that's coming up between the Mariners and White Sox, maybe we will see a vacuuming or a mopping this week. We do want to ask you about your guy, Jerry Dipoto. You've been tracking every trade that Jerry Dipoto has made. I feel like there's only 2 people in baseball in 2024 that could actually make or have the guts to make a trade for Luis Robert Jr. Do you feel the same way that AJ Preller and Jerry Dipoto are really the only people that could have the chutzpah to make an offer for Luis Robert Jr.?
Oh, man. Great use of the word chutzpah there. Yes, I totally agree with you. I think that I would throw Alex Anthopoulos into that mix, but they do not necessarily have the same pieces to work with, same farm system, depth to work with there. And some of the reporting suggests that when they made the Gregory Santos deal, that the concept was at least broached earlier this season when the White Sox and Mariners had linked up. And I think that is relevant that they have already, done a deal with these 2 front offices, because I'll be honest, just, scouring my tracker recently, before that, there really wasn't a long, we know Dipoto has a long trade history, but the Mariners and White Sox had only linked up 3 times before this Santos deal. One of them was the column for Omar Narvaez, and the other 2 were extremely minor deals that are not really anything anyone's going to remember. And so with that in mind, I think that I don't think it's an accident that, some front offices become more familiar with each other, that are willing to make those aggressive deals. And by the way, to your point, that obviously applies to AJ Preller as well, having already seen them, swing that deal for Dylan Cease.
Jordan, as a 45-year-old man, I always marvel at the younger generations that have the freedom to choose teams that they like instead of the ones that we mostly have, or where, hey, my dad liked that team, or we live close to that ballpark. How does a person from the DMV area become a Mariners fan?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think that I've reflected on that, and I'm sure my dad, who's listened to me do these interviews, been like, yeah, why didn't you follow me rooting for all the Washington teams? Well, the answer is because most of them were embarrassments to all of their respective sports and really bad. Now, in my case, the Nationals showed up when I was about 10, but the truth is, my baseball fandom, which peaked, early on when I was like 5, was all about Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr. When I was really young, I didn't have any attachment to any sort of specific team because there wasn't a team near me. I didn't have any attachment to the Orioles the way that Jake does because he has a lot of Baltimore family. So I didn't really have a team growing up. And the Nationals, when they arrived when I was 10, I was not as into baseball at that point. I know that sounds wild if you listen to what I do now, but as I got older, when I was really starting to get way back into it, and I knew I didn't want to be a Nats fan, it was really as simple as Felix Hernandez was my favorite pitcher. And I just was carving out time all the time. The early days of me getting MLB TV, I was staying up late and watching Felix Hernandez every single time he pitched. And then that combined with kind of getting a little bit ingrained with the Mariners online community, which of course I still have all these years later. It was really that simple. I just kind of picked them, and now here I am. I guess still enjoying this team that is very, very far away. And of course, that has had some ups and some downs for sure.
Hey, you're leading the AL West. That's something, right?
This is unfamiliar territory, I got to say. This is very, very, very strange times right now because they certainly have not been playing like a first-place team, but there are certainly some elements that reflect that.
Yeah, and 5 games up in the AL West as well. Which team do you think like the more lurking giant? Is it the reigning champs or defending? Which one?
Reigning. You got
reigning champs, the Rangers, or is it just the machine that has been the Houston Astros?
Yeah, man, I'll still say the Astros until they're mathematically eliminated. I think with Texas, there's more reasons for optimism in terms of looking ahead to the second half when you consider the guys they're expected to get back on the mound. Sounds like Scherzer just had a really good rehab start yesterday, so we could see him soon. As for DeGrom and Tyler Mahle and all these other guys, we'll see. But in theory, they are a team that should be getting stronger, whereas Houston just keeps getting hurt even more and more and more on the mound. And there's less depth kind of coming there. At the same time, man, like, It's hard to bet against that infrastructure. They just dug themselves such a big hole, Houston did, that losses like yesterday are just extra brutal when you consider, the kind of how far they're needing to climb after their brutal April. So I still lean Houston slightly, but I don't think it's tough to say. Both of those teams are pretty frustrating to watch right now.
Yeah, I was listening to you with Ben and Woods of San Diego, and they great show, but they always lament, and I always give our Chicago Cubs people hell because they're always lamenting, our team sucks. And then I think it was either you or Carl Glasser that said, calm down. It's the White Sox. The White Sox are the worst organization in baseball. So what is the view from outside? Because we do a show 5 days a week about the White Sox, and we know how bad they are. But what's the outside view of the Chicago White Sox as a baseball organization?
Let me just say, you guys are incredible, because let me say, and fandom is an amazing thing, my friends, because I tapped in, I was listening, I was just checking out your guys' post game show yesterday, and digging into some of the Grifol decisions and Maldonado and all this. I'm like, man, these guys still care this much. It's like seriously, listen, I've watched some bad teams too, and I can relate to that to some degree, but it is a reminder that it doesn't matter what even if it's obvious that you're the worst team in baseball, you still want to see signs of progress. You still want to see moves and kind of decisions made that aren't embarrassing or frustrating, right? It's not that you're suddenly expecting to wake up and watch them be a postseason caliber team. You understand the situation and the bigger picture here. But I think it's a reminder of just that fans are still enduring this and wanting to see improvement on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's a fascinating thing that you guys are obviously capturing on a regular basis. As for the national perspective, I think, this is a situation where there's a lot of context here. It's not just the decisions made with the roster. It's kind of everything involved above the front office, and how the front office was the same for so long. It finally changed, but did it really, right? When you still have the front office or the ownership at the top and the direction that they're going, and kind of I don't know if complacency is the right word, but kind of, oh yeah, you know what? It's fine. We'll just settle into this rebuild, and our fans will put up with it. And man, as they've sunk to depths this year, that I think any rebuild is really tough to swallow, even if you know what the grand plan is.
Yeah, especially when the last GM is promising parades, it just really hits worse when this team looks like they do. I want to know your take then on MLB managers. Herb and I really aren't big managers matter guy. I think that, even though there are only 30 of these positions, I feel like you could likely pop in a former major leaguer and they'd be able to navigate their way through a major league season. However, with Pedro Grifol, do you think it would be detrimental to the Sox to keep him around for the rest of 2024? Or do you kind of, maybe agree with Bob Nightingale just recently wrote in his piece where, this season's already sunk costs. The White Sox, I think, are 15 games back of fourth place in the AL Central. There's no salvaging this season. Let them ride it out, and we'll, reassess after the winter. Where do you stand on, Pedro Grifol's presence hurting the White Sox for the rest of 2024?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing to kind of start with when you assess a manager, not that I think that managers of bad teams are not impervious to criticism for their in-game decisions, but I do think that we have to try and think about what is the goal, right? What is the actual purpose of the 2024 White Sox this season? And so if you look through all of those lenses, I think, you can ask some fair questions of, are the right players getting the opportunities at the right times to in theory present a brighter future for everybody involved? Now, if that involves the catching position, is it okay, you're balancing, is Martin Maldonado helping our pitchers develop, or is he preventing playing time for some of our younger players, right? Those are the things that in theory Pedro Grifol should be weighing every single day, and not pushing forward with the delusion of we're gonna kick some butt, right? That's I think the question that we have to be asking when we are evaluating these decisions. And of course, with anything with managers, there's so many things that we don't know, and so I am usually a little bit reluctant to go too hard on game to game managing decisions like that. At the same time, I do think my issue with Grifol from the outside, and again, I haven't followed it as closely as you guys, is sometimes the messaging and sometimes the disconnect between what is a team in this situation supposed to be prioritizing and being very clear about it. And it's not saying come out here and saying we're trying to lose, but there are ways to do this job. We've seen managers, think about guys like Brandon Hyde, who did manage through terrible, terrible teams and come out the other side because they have respect of their respect of the young players and the trust that they are putting the young players and the whole vision in a better position to succeed. And that, I think, is fair to question that Grifol has done that thus far.
And Jordan, I'm a big fan of MLB ballparks. I've been to 20 or 30, and I know you've been to both MLB, college, and some minor league ballparks. Which is your favorite to visit no matter what? Like, is there a place that you're like, this is a baseball cathedral, everybody should visit this place?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit recency bias, even though I've given this answer before, but I was back in Pittsburgh last week, in PNC Park, and man, seeing that place, I've been there a few times over the last decade or so, but being there for Paul Skeens was really, really special. And to see a fan base and another fan base that has been through is still, you could argue, still technically a last place team. Certainly, a lot of reasons to be excited, and Skeens is first on the list there. But it's just a reminder, and I saw this in Cincinnati too. Again, spin this forward. I mean, the answer is PNC Park because it's beautiful, and I encourage everyone to go there, no matter how good good or bad the team is. But just to kind of tie it back to the White Sox, like, man, these fans care so much. They just want that one thing to help turn it around. I saw in Cincinnati with Ellie De La Cruz. It can now listen. That's a one of one. You could say the Skeens is two, but you just need that one or two things that fans want to care about, because that they want to be there. They want to go cheer on their team and win it, and it can turn a lot faster than I think you realize. And when that happens, I think that's really special to be around.
I want to ask about J-Rod, but just to follow up more on that point, when you see the rumors or maybe the Sox mulling trading Robert or Crochet, where do you stand? Because they still have, I think, about 3.5 years of control over Robert, two team options that are only $20 million. People have been talking about his health. Do you lean on, if you know enough about his health and you're concerned about that, trade him at, 3.5 years of control? Or since he is such an alluring prospect or an alluring player like J-Rod is in Seattle, do you just commit to it? Because you've already committed to an 8-year contract previously to Luis Robert Jr.
Yeah, you've already, to your point, like, you've already committed. You already, even with the health issues, I think what he showed us last year is coming off last year. I said that's one of the best most team-friendly contracts in baseball, all things good, like, honestly, right? But the health is a big factor. I think, man, it's hard to look at Robert and say that you should be, because of how team-friendly that contract is, that you should be pushing to move him. Crochet, I feel like, that would just be such a slap in the face to the fan base when you consider what he has come, just, not that he's appeared, of course he was a first-round pick, but to have that incredibly positive development, someone who's still under team control for so many seasons and wants to be a part of this, that would be really, really, really difficult for me to explain, because you're pushing so far out if you have something like that to kind of build around. As risky as pitchers are, I recognize that. Whereas Robert, a little bit more. You know the good, the bad. You've had some, like, 3 years and it could be longer than that, but that's one where I could at least sort of understand we could trade it for the kind of haul that if you nail it, you can have a kind of a transformational, multiple core pieces back. But that's so hard to do. And I don't think they should feel pressure to necessarily do that. There's plenty else that they should still be focusing to move on this team, whether that's Michael Kopech, whether that's Eric Fetty, whether that's some of the other shorter guys. Some of the guys who've obviously played better, like DeYoung, who maybe could be reasonably useful to trade. Hopefully Tommy Pham at some point too. There will be trades, we know, but I think prioritizing getting rid of those guys feels like a tough one, especially Crochet. Robert, I could understand a little more.
Final question for you. J-Rod in his last 15, hitting 328, 381, 500. Is this going to be a 4-game mopping of the Mariners and White Sox? Because the White Sox do have Crochet, and I think Fetty pitching this series, also the debut of Drew Thorpe. But I have some real concerns about a team that struggled on the road going to a Seattle place where they've been so good, and J-Rod is seemingly getting extremely hot.
Yeah, but I will say for a team as bad as the White Sox, you look at these pitching matchups and you say, hey, this is actually pretty juicy. Drew Thorpe facing his Cal Poly teammate Brian Wu tomorrow. That'll be really exciting. And listen, the Mariners offense has continued to be extremely inconsistent. They have been excellent at home. I mean, they're pitching at home combined with the White Sox, worst offense in baseball. Now it's certainly been better over the last couple of weeks, but that's better from, by far the worst in baseball to now merely whatever 25th or whatever you would call it. So I think that alone is going to be pretty tough for the White Sox to manage, because we've seen way better teams go into Seattle and fail to score whatsoever. So yeah, maybe we'll get some real pitching duels. I wouldn't mind it. I think those games can be pretty entertaining. And with the pitch clock now, they go like that, man. They're just like, oh, you look up and it's 1-0 in the 7th inning. There have been a lot of Mariners home games like that recently.
Well, that's exciting for people wanting to stay up on, for West Coast games. Hey, it's only going to be 2 hours of your time.
Hey, listen, I've been an East Coast Mariners fan for a long time. I'm used to staying up late. You guys should be able to appreciate that this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate it, Jordan. The number one Riku Nishida fan. We will have to save Riku Nishida talk whenever he makes his major league debut. We'll have you on then. But Jordan Shusterman, one half of Céspedes Family Barbecue. You can follow them at Céspedes BBQ. Jordan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both. Keep crushing it, guys.
Absolutely appreciate it. Jake and Jordan, again, post podcasts Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can catch up with all of your Major League Baseball news and rumors and, all sorts of goofs and gaffes. The good, the bad, and the ugly with Jake and Jordan.
Always on Friday. I met both of them down there in Nashville for the winter meetings, and I barely could speak to Jordan and or Jake because everybody wants a piece of them. They're very popular. They're like, hey man, let me go here, let me go there, and you could see why, because they know a lot of stuff about a lot of things. And as I was watching, I think Shaquille Taylor, who was our guest on Wednesday, talking to them on the Sabre podcast about how they're two different type of baseball nerds. They come for it in different type of styles. Like, you're like a baseball nerd, more like Jordan. Mm-hmm. I'm not a baseball nerd at all, but I did play.
You're a nerd.
Deep into high school, and then but Jake played in professional leagues.
You have baseball sensibilities where you get offended by things.
I do.
So I mean, you're a nerd. Different nerds, but nerds none the same. All right, we got to take a break. Why don't you let the people know about our friends over at Game Time?
If you are a fan of going out to ballparks, like I've been out to Seattle, it's a great ballpark. Not my favorite, but it's also a good one. But go to Game Time, because Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater, events that are near you. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I've told you about my story of going to Atlanta, buying tickets on Game Time. And every time I do buy tickets on Game Time, I go to all the rest of the secondary markets to check out the Game Time guarantee. See if there's a price in my row or section that is less than the price that I paid on Game Time. I found this one time in Atlanta, sent this information to Game Time, and within 12 minutes, I got 110% of the difference into my Game Time account, because Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the views from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you do arrive. And all-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without any of the hidden fees. And they're obsessed with finding you ways on saving money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after that event starts. It's the place to go for last-minute tickets. And with zone deals like I got up in Milwaukee, you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Game Time guarantee, as I just told you, means that you'll get the best price no matter what. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Thank you, Herb. And if you are looking to gamble on the Seattle Mariners and White Sox series coming up this week, check out our friends over at Circa Sportsbook. They are now I mean, they've been active in Illinois for a while, but hey, maybe you've been missing out. Maybe you don't realize the world's largest sports book could be at your fingertips. So go download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app. That's circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. They encourage you to download and explore all sports betting apps available. You can pair the lines from each and every sports book, and you will see that most of, if not every time, Circa has the best lines for you to gamble on, and Circa does not limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who do limit winning players, and there are real people behind the Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other books who use chatbots. I once had an issue with a sports book, and it took me about 2 to 3 hours to get proper help. That's not the case with their friends over at Circa. So download the app today at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. They are big supporters of us over here at CHGO Sports, and we are very, very thankful for them. If you or somebody you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537, text GMB to 833-234, visit areyoureallywinning.com. Let's go to Kevin Bryant's Super Chat, a $10 Super Chat. We appreciate Kevin for the Super Chat. We appreciate everyone watching so far on this off day. Make sure you hit a thumbs up for the video. Make sure you're subscribing as well to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We really do appreciate Jordan Shusterman's time there to preview the Mariners series coming up. Go follow Jake and Jordan over at Céspedes BBQ. And hey, you might even see our guy, Russ Dorsey, over there. Jordan was moving, and there's Russ Dorsey popping in. So good to see Russ. Kevin says, Pedro won't be fired as long as we are unserious as a franchise. Gets fielded one of the worst team in Major League history. How can we trust him to make us into a championship squad? We appreciate Kevin. I do feel, at least with Getz, he doesn't get as much, or with Getz, he should get a little bit of leeway, mainly because you look at where the team was payroll-wise compared to where they are now. It's about $60 million less than what that team was doing. I'm going to be interested to see what Chris Getz's 2025 team looks like, and if they are this bad, or even, still, a 60-win team. I think that's going to be the biggest detriment to Getz, because you could still see, like, the DeYoung acquisition. It's been fine. Yeah. He hasn't been that great defensively, but he's been able to bring some pop, which is all right. The biggest detriment to them has been Moncada, Aloy, and Robert getting hurt, and I don't really think that's all on Chris Getz. I do wonder what their record would be if they did have those three guys completely healthy. Where have I said that before? You could drink. But I don't think this is Getz fielding one of the worst teams in Major League history. I do think it's a lot of different ingredients coming together to make the worst team in Major League history, and I don't think that's uniquely Getz's issue. I think it's more of a Reinsdorf issue. So I think it's less about Pedro and Getz and more about the guy that is actually leading the organization in Jerry.
Now, I don't think Chris is ready for the job that he has, because the job that he had before, he failed at miserably. Now, saying that, he's done a good job of hiring people below him that are doing a better job. Do I think that he is the future and he will get the White Sox on the right track? No. As Sean just said, the problem is Reinsdorf. Reinsdorf hired that guy. If the thing I would respect about Getz is Reinsdorf came up to him and said, hey, do you want to be the general manager? And he said, you know what? I'm not ready for it. I know no one would say that, because there's 30 of these jobs. It's a big-time deal for a guy his age to get a job like this. But a little self-awareness of, I'm not ready to take on this whole mess that Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams left for me, and then having to dig out what they did and then still have the guy above me that's not going to provide any help when I do eventually dig out of this thing, because they do have people down in the minor leagues that are coming. The Colson Montgomerys of the world are coming. Edgar Carroll is coming. As we're seeing on Tuesday, Drew Thorpe is here. And so they have bullets. But when it's time to make the team whole, when the minor leagues run out, or can they replenish the minor leagues like so many other clubs, like the Seattle Mariners have, like the San Diego Padres have, like the Baltimore Orioles have? When it's that time, does he do it? And I know when it's time to put an actual major league player with money in the field where the minor leaguers couldn't, it won't be Getz doing that, because his guy above him won't give him the money necessary to do that. So we'll be in this same cycle of mediocrity to being woefully bad right now. Like, as our White Sox fandom has gone, this is the worst time to be a White Sox fan. They've been bad before. They've had rebuilds before. This is the only time I remember them being undoubtedly the worst team in baseball with no real hope of being better than the goddamn Colorado Rockies or the goddamn Oakland Athletics. That's what's sad about me. So, yeah, I think we should give him a chance because this is his first rodeo. But at first blush, I thought he wasn't qualified to do the job anyways. I didn't think this was coming. But as Sean has put, you have a lot of people that are been hurt. The superstars on this team, Robert, Aloy, and Moncada being hurt, puts a detriment on that team because firstly, they're good players, and then when you go from their level of play to the next level of play, you fall off the table, and then Pedro Grifol is not helping at all with his management/leadership style.
And when Rick and Kenny were having success in the early 2000s up to, what about 2014, 13?
08, they went to 08's the last time they actually did anything.
All right, so
11 Ozzie left, and then 12 they lost the lead in the last month.
97, 98 was real bad, but 99 was all right, right? That was when things started to turn around.
Yeah, that was the kids can play, yeah.
Like 99 to about 08, that's when Major League Baseball was just on the edge of getting so analytical, and you started to see more influences from the A's and Rays, and then obviously those two teams specifically focused a ton on the farm system and trying to make sure that they could find those players that were underlying. It seems like the White Sox have really been left in the dust when it comes to that. Corey Julks has been very fun to see. There's been some fun guys here and there. Carlos Quinton obviously was a success story, but that was one of the later ones. The White Sox really haven't been able to adapt to a newer Major League Baseball, and when Jerry Reinsdorf was, still a 15 to top 10 or even, top 6, because he was never really top 5 spender in baseball, they were able to field decent teams because, again, just people weren't that smart back then. The game is so smart. Yeah. It is so advanced past where the White Sox are that they have just been truly struggling to build a true contender, as we've been able to see, and it's frustrating. Hopefully things turn around.
And it's the thing, too, like, you see people look at the drafting record and the first round bust, and you're like, that's why the White Sox haven't done well. I say that's an ingredient, but you can look no further than Houston. They had multiple first round picks fail in their face. I mean, Appel failed immediately. Same thing happened with the guy they have at first base now. What's his name? John Singleton failed. And they still progressed and won because they didn't just trust on one or two players. They had a whole system that worked out for them where they drafted well, cultivated these players, and when they got to the major league level, yes, they cheated in 2017. But hell, that flag's going to fly forever. To solidify that they are champions, they won in 2022. So with most of their players being homegrown. So that's, yes, an excuse that the White Sox didn't draft well and they missed on a lot of first-round picks. But there are teams that have overcome their bad drafting and had more players available to come up when those players do not do the job. And the White Sox have failed on all of those things where they don't draft well and then they don't develop them well and then they don't have enough players to come up when those other players who are actually good evidently or eventually get hurt.
Yeah, and pretty good stretch there from the Astros. I know you mentioned the people that they have missed. They've missed some Mark Appel, some Brady Aikens, some Daz Camerons, Forrest Whitleys, JB Bukaukises, Seth Beers. 2019, who'd they take? 2019, who'd they take first round?
Tucker.
No. Our
Correa?
man, $50,000.
Who? In 2019?
All-star catcher. Corey Lee.
Oh, they took him. Oh, first round?
Yeah, first round.
Jesus Christ.
He's Andrew Vaughn's roommate.
I didn't know he took him in the first round.
Yeah,
wow.
No, he's Andrew Vaughn's roommate. They were at the same draft. But from 2011 to 2015, George Springer, Carlos Correa, Lance McCullers, Mark Appel, Brady Aiken, Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, Daz Cameron. Pretty good. Pretty good first rounder. So, yeah. I mean, hopefully.
They missed on 3.
Maybe Garrett Crochet starts that 2020 run for the White Sox. And you have Garrett Crochet, and you have Noah Schultz, and you have Colson Montgomery.
And you have Andrew Vaughn.
Well, he was 2019. Again, I said start in 2020. Who was the
2018?
No, so 2020 was Crochet. 2021 was
it Jacob Gonzalez? Or is he 22?
Oh, so 21 was then Colson, 22 was Schultz, and then 23 was Gonzalez.
Okay.
And Gonzalez has been all right. So, hey, I mean, 4 straight years where they might have hit on a first rounder being a Major League Baseball
The
player.
White Sox have done it before. I mean, the late 80s, early 90s.
McDowell, Frank,
Alex Fernandez, and Robin Ventura.
Your guy. So we'll see, maybe one day. Let's take a break, and we will let you know about some of our good sponsors, and then we will also talk a little bit about the Athletics' recent poll where we got to understand where the White Sox stand as a franchise to Major League Baseball players. We want to let you know about our friends over at Sunnyside. It's a beautiful day out here in the city. Beautiful, and it's no better day to go check out our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. They're here to elevate your summer. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from, with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign and as far north as South Beloit. Stop into the store nearest you for expert guidance from their staff, or select from high-quality lines like Cresco or Florical. I'm going to go pick up a classic. Reminds me of my guy every single day, the Simply Herb line, because his name's Herb. Simply. He's Simply Herb. Every single day he shows up as Herb at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. And you can too by heading over to sunnyside.shop and use code HICHGO, HICHGO at checkout for 35% off brands like Cresco, Good News, and more to elevate your first purchase. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. And we want to let you know about our friends over at Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And they have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. I like the Oakmont version of them, but as you could see on the little graphic there, you got the reflective lenses. So whatever you may want, maybe you want a more classic vintage look, maybe you want more of a modern look, Shady Rays has the looks for you. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal this season. Oh, thank you. Head over to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized shades. Again, head to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized shades. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. The Athletic today put out an article that wasn't good, friends. They had
The article was good, but wasn't good for the White Sox fans.
They had the MLB 2024 player poll where they talked about worst organizations, the most overrated peer, the best player in baseball. Not much of a shocker. Out of 102 people, 46% of them said Shohei Ohtani was the best player in baseball. But also shockingly, only 46% of them said Shohei Ohtani.
It's like the rest of the 54 can't see.
Well, is it Shohei Ohtani the hitter, or is it Shohei Ohtani the pitcher, or are they just not figure? He does both.
Yes, he does both.
So
game over.
You know, Mookie playing shortstop has been incredible.
Awesome.
But
fantastic.
One guy pitches and hits. Yeah. And he hits 40 homers and has a sub-3 ERA.
As we said, I believe he's the best baseball player of all time. Better than Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth only did this for 2 full seasons. Shohei, when he comes back to pitching next year, oh, God. Last year he was fucking phenomenal. The year before he was phenomenal. And imagine 2025 when he's hitting like he is now. And by the way, just as a side, on June 24th, you can come with us to our takeover, where Shohei Ohtani will be here in Chicago.
And Mookie Betts.
And Freddie Freeman. You can see a great baseball team.
And Bobby Miller.
And then the White Sox play on June 24th. We'll be sitting in 147, third base line, enjoying some times down there. We had a great time when the Toronto Blue Jays came in town. Now we actually get to see the best team in the National League. No, that's the Phillies. But the most, the team that spends the most money in the National League, the LA Dodgers, who are running away with the NL West, coming here to Guaranteed Rate Field. So join us at our takeover. The link is in the description and in the comments right now. So go there, get your tickets.
And there were more questions like, is the season too long? Which team would you sign with if contracts, states, taxes, and rosters were not a factor? Most of them said the Braves. There were some votes for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and Rangers. No votes for the White Sox in that category because the 6th question was, what organizations have bad reputations among players? Multiple answers were allowed, and out of 79 respondents, 40 said the Oakland A's, 14 said the Los Angeles Angels, 10 said the Rockies, 8 said the Mets, and then there were some votes from the Pirates, Marlins, Rays, Padres, Yankees, Nationals, Royals, etc. No mention of the Chicago Cubs, I will say that. But coming in second place, between the 40 votes for the Oakland A's and the 14 for the Los Angeles Angels, your Chicago White Sox with 19 votes. And what players had to say about the White Sox, quote, "I've never heard a good thing," end quote. Quote, "Unlike some other bad teams, they have more potential to be good," end quote. Quote, "It sounds like no one wants to be there day in and day out, like it's a grind to just show up at the ballpark. I couldn't imagine," end quote. Quote, "It's not good over there. You could tell by how often there's turnover that it usually means something's going on. Players leaving the organization and automatically doing better with their new team," end quote. And then finally, quote, "Poor communication," end quote. Herb, what do you make of the White Sox being the second worst team according to players?
I mean, those players are wrong. They are the worst team. I understand the Oakland situation is unique, and they're moving to Sacramento, then they're moving to Las Vegas, and so that is also a detrimental thing, and the bathrooms are not great, the clubhouse is not great in Oakland. But I've always said, people don't believe me, the White Sox are the worst organization in professional sports that I know of because of the things that they have available to them in this market, having the rabid baseball fans that they have in here, having already a championship in the recent past that they could have marketed off of, which they failed to do, where they could have taken the lion's share of fans available at that time who were growing up in 2005 and choosing between the White Sox and the Cubs, maybe the Brewers or the Cardinals, and the White Sox missed their chance to do that because of bad marketing, bad ownership, bad on the field sometimes. As we just talked about, they just fell off the table after 2008 and didn't go to the playoffs again until 2020. So I think they are the worst organization in baseball for multiple reasons. But one pointed out that players go there and then leave there and then become ultimately better. Recently, the only example of that, like immediately, was Kevin Pillar, who's out in L.A. just murdering the ball somehow. But otherwise, Tim's bad. Lance is better than he was last year. He's not great.
He was horrible.
Giolito's hurt. Yeah, Giolito's hurt.
Liam's been hurt.
I mean, Ronaldo technically is better, but he didn't come straight from the White Sox. He went to L.A., then he went to the Guardians. Now he's in Atlanta. So, yeah, there are some players that do that, but it's not like automatically that the player leave here, they get better in some other spot. Somebody pointed out Avi Garcia is another guy that didn't do that. So, yeah, I think that while Oakland should be the default as they're the worst organization because the whole situation there, with the White Sox and how much money they have and the stadium they play in and the town that they play in, that would be the worst for me. Because you have a good example of a Major League Baseball team that kind of doesn't spend money a lot. In the Cubs, they spend money, but they act like cheap, like we're broke as fuck. Right. And you have that in town. And once you want to compete with that, the White Sox have no interest in competing with the Cubs. They have interest in competing with these also-ran teams in the AL Central, and now the AL Central has gone away from the White Sox, and that's embarrassing. Like the worst division in baseball. Before the season started, as you talked about, they're 15 games behind the worst team ahead of them.
And they're still puffy-chested about it, or at least when Chris Getz was announced, they're puffy-chested about, it's just the AL Central. We can compete in the AL Central. Come on, it's the elephant in the room, how bad the AL Central is. And here the White Sox are just being so pathetic. It's obviously circling around the commitment. And I think Blake named earlier, Jerry doesn't care for spending. He wants the taxpayers to build him a new stadium, and he never wants to give out a $100 million contract. I think it's just hilarious that he's talking about how much the fans hate Guaranteed Rate Field, which they don't. It's a fine place. It's not great. It's not bad. Fine. It's not like the Oakland Coliseum where there's possums and rats and major upgrades because it's a football stadium, right? Like this was a baseball stadium made for a baseball stadium. It's just like, I don't know, Orland Park Mall or any of these malls you walk around. They're fine. It's not the mall's fault. It's just nobody wants to go to malls. Yeah. Nobody wants to go to White Sox games. That's the issue. And if you're willing to give $200 million to this stadium project, why aren't you willing to give $200 million to a player that would help your team? It doesn't seem like this adds up. Or, hey, I'm not a huge math guy, Herb, but if you're willing to spend $200 million on a stadium, right, I could see this, and correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're more of a math guy than I am. If you're willing to spend $200 million on one player or maybe a stadium, right? You take that stadium money and maybe spend it on a player. you could divide that in half and actually give 2 players $100 million contracts.
Good.
So I don't know. I mean, you could get crafty, but it does seem like Jerry Reinsdorf obviously has the budget, has the financing, and has the money to go out and truly supplant or help this team get major league talent, and they just consistently don't. And as Jordan brought up, it'd be kind of a slap in the face to trade Garrett Crochet. I feel like it would be a slap in the face to trade Luis Robert Jr.
Yes.
Commit to those players, try to make it work in the next 3 years, and if it doesn't, at the 2027 Major League deadline, hey, we could trade Garrett Crochet. Hey, we could trade Luis Robert Jr., and then you could restock for the next rebuild. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why they are so hesitant to lock up players and to commit to players, whether it be free agents or not. And this is just why all of this is happening, is because this organization is poorly run, and players know it. And this is something that I think can change, as one player says. Like, they have the resources to be better than what they are. They just consistently fall flat. And Bryce Harper's been ranked as one of the more overrated players in these player polls, and now he's worked himself to not even being a part of that conversation. Maybe the White Sox and this first year can be a step for Chris Getz and Jerry Reinsdorf, but we're going to need a lot of proof. We need a lot of stepping up here from this organization, whether it be this offseason or in the next coming years, to actually see their seriousness about this project.
I mean, you could tell even when they do try to get a player that is over $100 million, they're $1 million over the Wheeler offer out in Philadelphia. He chose Philadelphia over White Sox, even though it's only $1 million, because his wife wanted to be there. And I'm guaranteeing you, if the White Sox offered $15 million more than what the Philadelphia Phillies were offering, he would be a Chicago White Sox right now, bar none. You have to pay a tax. As the players say it in that damn poll, they don't want to go here. No one wants to go here. So you have to pay a White Sox tax. Hey, yeah, you don't want to come here, but if we pay you more than market value, you'll bring your punk ass here, won't you? Yeah, good ass player, you'll come here. Instead of offering $75 million, which is way over market value for Andrew Benintendi, and now you see the player that he is, offer that more to Juan Soto. It won't happen. I'm just saying, these are the type of players that you should be breaking the bank for, and having that White Sox tax in your mind, and not being, hey, we're going to be giving you the same offer as Philadelphia. We're going to give you the same offer as the LA Dodgers, because those things are different things. The only reason Tommy Pham signed here is because the taxes in California are exorbitant. Otherwise, he'll be a San Diego Padre right now. Mm-hmm. That's the only advantage you have over California. So you have to, as the White Sox, understand where your standing is and play to that, and just offer money. You're going to have a bunch of money come off the books again this year. Offer all the money to a great free agent.
Yeah, well,
I guarantee there'll be people going through the turnstiles.
And again, we know that the White Sox were in on Manny Machado and didn't end up making the true offer to entice him enough. And we also know that Bryce Harper was interested in the Chicago White Sox, interested in a blue-collar town, a team with a blue-collar vibe, and the White Sox never made an offer to Bryce Harper. And again, it's not like these players are, just guys that might fall off the table like Andrew Benintendi's. This is Bryce Harper. This is a kid that went to JUCO as a 17-year-old and was the best player in college baseball. Yep. This is the guy that was the LeBron James of Major League Baseball, and the White Sox just couldn't make that offer, couldn't go the distance.
Like, why do you bring him in the building?
Yeah, why do you have a meeting?
If you're not going to say...
Why do you have Jim Thome there?
Just offer him whatever he wants. I don't understand these teams. Understand where you are in the hierarchy of baseball. And if you need Bryce Harper and or Manny Machado, ask them what they want. And if they tell you what they want, tell them we'll put it in the contract. Don't get a person in the building to talk to him and not give him the ask. Ask him. And he would say $333 million. What? That's all? Here, get your ass out of here. We'll see you at spring training.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. Like, Bryce Harper now is a bargain. What he's doing.
He's ready to renegotiate.
Yeah, what has he won? Like 3 MVPs in his career?
2015, 2018, 2022.
Yeah.
2 MVPs.
2 MVPs, like
2015 and then 2021.
Okay.
I mean, still, pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good.
320 home runs.
Led him to the World Series.
Yeah, currently in 2024, he's got a 161 OPS plus, and in his time in Philly, it's just a classic 150 OPS plus.
That worked.
So,
and they're the best team in baseball.
Oh yeah,
Philadelphia Phillies.
By far.
Weird.
Weird. Anyways, let's get into some quotes. We do have Drew Thorpe starting, and we will talk about that soon. He'll be making his start on Tuesday. Vinny did have an article up at ALLCITY.com, even though he is going to Arkansas and probably having one hell of a time down there. He did publish an article about Pedro Grifol. He did have some exclusive words with Pedro, and what I do want to read to you is about him and Pedro's relationship with the hot seat. Quote, "It doesn't matter what you have in any sport if it's a high-profile job, which all of these jobs are. The day you get hired, you're on the hot seat, to be honest with you. That's just the way that it works." Those guys were always on the hot seat, Ned Yost and Mike Matheny, and until Ned won a championship there, we went to a World Series and won a championship, he was always on the hot seat. Shit, he was on the hot seat in Milwaukee when he should never been, in my opinion. And the hot seat became burning at one point. They made a change with 10 games left or something like that. And Matheny, if you look at it, he was probably on the hot seat in St. Louis for the back end of his career over there. And that was instrumental. That was an instrumental part of for me watching them. The thing I get out of it is don't focus on that. Those guys were really instrumental for me, man, watching how they handled the players, watching how they handled the clubhouse, watching how they handled the media and the speculations about their job, and never made it about them. It was actually cool for us to see as a staff, this guy's on the hot seat, but he's protecting us and caring for us. Thoughts?
I mean,
it's cool he's on the hot seat.
I disagree with him saying when you get hired, you're on the hot seat. And didn't Yost getting fired in the Brewers like turn them around? Didn't they like go to the playoffs after that and have a good showing? Like there was I recollect like it was that CC Sabathia year, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2008. Nud Yost was 83 and 67. Dale Svem took over. Swaim, 7 and 5 in the last 12 games, and they finished 90 and 72 and made the playoffs.
Yeah, and so it worked out for them. They made the playoffs. So I think that sometimes a manager needs to be on the hot seat, and not because, as we have discussed before, because it's his fault, but somebody needs to be released on this team. And since you can't release the 26 men are on the roster, you got to have some type of culpability for the record or the stretch that you're going through. And so, yes, I think that Pedro Grifol, while espousing those opinions about his two former bosses, is on the hot seat for a reason. Maybe those two shouldn't have been, and maybe they shouldn't have fired Ned Yost when they did. But Pedro has more than deserved his firing, and to equate his plight right now with theirs, come on, man. You got no skins in the wall. At least Matheny and Yost had won like divisions, had some success in their career, had been over 500. Pedro, try that out. Over 500. I think he was over 500 one game, his first game ever.
Yeah, right.
And that was it.
Right? Yeah.
Grand opening, grand closing.
I think that has to be correct.
Yeah, he won his first game. They lost the next two, and I think they won the last one.
He's currently 78 and 150. Again, we are just waiting with bated breath here. Can he go 22 and 50 in his next 72 games? Because then he'd be 200 wins before he gets to 100 wins.
No, I don't think so. Because think about in that time, you're probably going to be trading Fetty. He'll be gone. More than likely Tommy Pham. You'll have a worse team no matter what coming out of that trade. Yeah, Drew Thorpe is coming up. That's awesome. But you'll also be trading or getting rid of Mike Clevenger for whatever reason that is, of him either being good or bad. You'll be having a pitcher in here, either in Nastrini and Jonathan Cannon, that's probably not as good as Mike Clevenger is at his career, so you'll probably be working at a deficit in talent at that time, and so Pedro really can't do anything.
We got a wrap. You mentioned Drew Thorpe. He'll be making his Major League debut tomorrow for the Chicago White Sox. We are excited, and we will talk about that tomorrow, give you more details about him. He is the second player in Major League history from St. George, Utah, to make his Major League debut. Can you name the other?
Bobby Abreu. No, he's Venezuelan.
No, Bruce Hurst, who played from 1980 to 1994.
I've actually stayed in St. George, Utah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It seems pretty from the pictures I saw.
On my way to San Diego.
Did you know this? This is an unconfirmed fact, so I don't know if it's actually a fact or not. But do you know who's also from Utah?
Brigham Young.
Tan Banks.
Oh.
So Tanner Banks and Drew Thorpe, from my research that is not complete, and I really didn't actually do any research. I just know that these two players are from Utah, and I'm just going to make a statement. Drew Thorpe and Tanner Banks will be the first Major League teammates, both from Utah. Okay. I haven't confirmed it, but sounds true.
Sounds true.
I like the way it sounds.
You're not thinking of like the 1920s.
I mean, I have a list here of all the players from Utah.
Utahians.
Yeah, there's not a ton of them. So I'm just going to go out the fact that say, none of these guys overlapped.
Anybody that I know.
Tanner Banks.
Thank you.
No, Mitch Talbot, Chris Shelton.
I know Chris Shelton. He had a good
5 years.
April.
Yeah.
And then he was nothing after that.
Yeah. No one else really sticks out. Nope. No. Utah really doesn't promote.
And they want to have a Major League Baseball team there.
Yeah, get out of here! Come on. Max Stassi underwent a season-ending left hip surfacing procedure. I don't know what the hell that is. At the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. So if you were hoping that Max Stassi would be bailing out Martin Maldonado, that is not the case. All right, that's going to do it for the CHGO White Sox podcast. We'll be back tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. to talk about Drew Thorpe's first start. If you do want to be chatting with us through these West Coast games, we urge you to sign up for the DieHard program. You can go over to allchgo.com/diehard to sign up. We will be in the Discord tonight, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, talking with you about these White Sox games while they're out on the West Coast. We will not have our typical post-game shows this week. Our shows will be at 3:45 tomorrow and then 3 o'clock on Wednesday and Thursday. So join us then. We'll be recapping the game tomorrow, and the same with Tuesday and Wednesday, and the same on Wednesday and Thursday. So we will see you then. Thank you to Sarah for producing the show. That's Herb Lawrence. You can follow him at HectorWall23. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. You can follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. And again, thank you very much to Jordan Shusterman of Céspedes Family Barbecue for joining us today. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.